is a spiderweb material, but these fibers are highly unusual in their properties. They contain highly dangerous biochemical components with no explanation of its origin. The Environmental Protection Agency in America does not even acknowledge the biochemical components and does not comment on it because it is not in their policy to do so. Next point. Atmospheric mold tests have concluded that there is high concentration of mold or fungus in the air. It hurts the immune system by consuming the nutrients the immune system uses to repair the body, so it damages our immune system. Sinus infections, colds, and flus can be a result of this. Also, a lot of cancers and other devastating diseases can be formed. Next point. Unusual biological components have repeatedly been identified in a variety of atmospheric samples. Particulate matter acts as a transport mechanism for biological materials that can stick to the components of a material, increasing respiratory illness. Next point. This one's a crazy one. Electromagnetic testing has shown that the atmosphere is modified into a plasma state or electrified gas. It is proven that the atmosphere is used for electromagnetic applications. The presence of extremely low frequency, or ELF, radiation waves have been verified that it exists. ELFs have an effect on the direct nature of the electromagnetic field of humans. It's a proven fact we all emit energy. Artificial ELF pulses have been detected on a variety of different tests. The origin to these artificial pulses is unknown, so it must be concluded it might be a cause of chemtrail. These pulses have 6 significant effects to human health. 1. Human mental functioning, influence and control. 2. Disruption of cellular metabolism. 3. Suppression of the immune system. 4. Genetic modification and or DNA effects. 5. Influence upon free radical formation. And 6. Cyclotronic resonance. Next point. Radar anomalies also raise the concern that the electromagnetic environment has been altered. Next point. Electrolysis testing confirmed the existence of ionizing metallic salts in our atmosphere.
Man, this one opens up a big world. You start out with metallic salts. That's interesting itself. And by the way, metals are not necessarily uncommon. If you go through the periodic table, roughly half of our elements are metals. So, you know, if you start to dissect what I say, something metallic is not particularly unusual in the environment. Okay? Metallic salt restricts it a little bit further. It starts to suggest, let's say, the solubility, the ability to put something in solution. Right? We're talking about water down the road with our atmosphere, talking about water. And so when I start to say metallic salt, now we're getting in an area where we're saying, probably have an issue of solubility for them. And again, to bring it back to simple cases, what happens when you put some salt, a regular table salt, in some water? What happens? And what happens is the slightest bit of salt, you don't need much, the slightest bit completely changes the electrochemical properties of that solution. That salt solution will carry a current. Pure water doesn't carry much at all, almost nil. But you put a little bit of salt in that water and everything changes with respect to the physics of that solution. The ionosphere, many of us have heard of the ionosphere, a layer up there about 60 to 100 miles above us. And what happens there? This is a charged layer. Ion, by the way, means charge. It's a charged particle, something that carries an electric charge. What's that mean? It means it has the ability to conduct a current. The ionosphere is a layer up above us, very, very different physical properties. And if you look at that, if you look at the amount of it, it's something like, it's like 2%, 3% of the mass of that. That layer is electrically charged, but it completely changes the physical and electrical properties of that environment. And so when I start to say that we have the repeated detection of ionizable metallic salts, and the expected consequence of that is that our atmosphere, which by all measures is not regarded to be a conductive environment, certainly not highly conductive in any way, generally not conductive. Air is one of the best insulators that there is, right? What happens if you introduce a physical change to that atmosphere that at the very least enhances, degree is always a question, but enhances the propagation of electromagnetic energy through that environment? What happens? What happens is you completely change the basic physics of this planet. You have a shell. You have a shell around the Earth. There's a word plasma that comes up. I didn't know what plasma was when I started. I was conventionally trained, and so I dig in when I need to. I didn't know plasma. Plasma was Star Trek to me. Okay. So if you actually dig into it, plasma is like the most common thing in the whole universe. 99% of the entire cosmos as we know them is plasma. Plasma means electrically charged gas. What happens if you consider literally the shell of our Earth, the very physics of that being changed in an electromagnetic way, not just the physical means? Remember how I said you can deal at the pollution level? Just take it at the simplest level, pollution. You're screwing up the sky. Follow the air quality standards law. Well, you can do this at the same level with breathing, okay? The more particulate matter, the more physical particulate matter in the air, the more of you that will die. This is just a fact. You go to the AMA and look it up. You're going to die if there's more physical stuff in the air. I am not speaking of just the physical level, but I am acknowledging that. If that's where you want to start, fine. I am saying the ramifications here are much, much deeper in terms of what the impact is. Let's go to number 2, a fibrous material. Very unusual fibrous material. These materials are showing up over and over and over. They are sub-micron again. Normal fibers are on the order of 10, 7, 12 microns thick. You can see them with your eye, right? You take a wool fiber, you can see it. Those are in the order of 7, 12 microns, somewhere in there. A spider web, I got down to 2 microns. That's actually not true. Sorry, the spider web was 7 microns that I had, and asbestos fiber is on the order of 2 microns. Many of us are familiar with the environmental attention that has been given to the asbestos issue in our lives. Not a good thing to breathe. 2 microns, right? What if you have a material in the atmosphere that is measuring at the sub-micron level? This particular material was sent to the United States Environmental Protection Agency. It was sent with a very reasonable letter requesting permission, requesting identification for what this material was on behalf of the public interest. This was a claim of the letter. It was sent by certified mail. It was sent to the Administrator of the United States Protection Agency. From my standpoint, a very reasonable request to make. If that I find something foreign in the environment, I look up the mission statement of the EPA, and I say, we may have an environmental concern, please identify. The EPA refuses, number one, they refuse to acknowledge even the physical receipt of that material. We have the letter to them, certified mail. They would not acknowledge the receipt of this material. There was simply no, they did correspond. They did write back. There was no reference at all to receipt of to the physical material, and the response, you'll see a few choice words over and over and over, and those choice words are, we are not aware. We are not aware of any aerosol operations. They return the sample. Never did anything. They return the sample, and they state that it is not the policy of the United States Environmental Protection Agency to identify any unsolicited material. This was their response. What is policy? Policy is whim. Policy is a person in charge. Policy is not law. There are laws in place. There are mission statements of the United States Protection Agency. You don't get away with this with policy. The third category is that of biological components, of what appears to be a desiccated erythrocyte. An erythrocyte is a red blood cell. What appears to be freeze-dried or desiccated. And I didn't see it once. I saw it over and over and over. There is a very solid basis of evidence that exists that indicates a extremely prominent biological aspect to these aerosol operations. I'm saying it mildly. It's quite conceivable. The